Hey everyone, Mark from Opal Quest. Yeah, this is part two of our cutting of an opal and making it into a pendant. If you haven't seen the first one, I encourage you to zip back and try and find that and have a quick look at the first part and then enjoy the second part, which we're doing now. So if you could give us a thumbs up and a like and subscribe, it helps out our channel. And hope you like this one. I'll catch you later. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to make a pretty simple setting for this bit of opal. What I'll do is I'll get some 9 carat gold, I'll roll the piece out. What it'll end up being is basically, this will be a bit rough, but the backing of it, I'll make it out of say 1 mil square solid gold, and then the opal will sit on that base, and then we'll actually weld a bezel around that and drop the opal on top of it and then bezel that around over it. Wow, that looks terrible, doesn't it? Anyway, and then we'll put a jump ring on the end and I'll do a homemade bale. I'll probably do a split in the end of it as well. So looking at it side on, the base will be like that. We'll do that first and the opal will sit perfectly in the base. Carve it down like that, and then we'll put a bezel on the sides, and then we'll bezel that over, which means just folding the metal over, just folding the gold over the stone like that, and then we'll weld a jump ring on the end and the bale go on that. So anyway, pretty bad drawing, but let's just make it. Okay, I've just rolled out a bit of gold and annealed it. What I've decided for the base, I'm actually going to use as 2.2 mil by 1.1 mil bit of bar stock we had. So I'm going to bend that around actually on its side, and that'll be the base. And I've got a bit of 0.3 or 0.4 mil, can't remember now, a bit of solid gold for the bezel, and that will go around the stone. So I've annealed that as well to make it nice and soft, and we'll be able to wrap that around in a sec. So what I'll do here is just slowly try and bend this around the shape of the stone. It's always a bit more difficult bending this sort of stock on its side, because it always wants to fold over on itself. So we're just going to slowly work this around. And I'll probably have to anneal it again as it work hardens as we go. So it's just a matter of working it around to fit the stone. I'll just quickly anneal that again to make it a lot softer so I can use it. So I've annealed this bit of strip that we've got to wrap around as a bezel. So nice and soft now, we can actually wrap it around the stone like so. Get it around to the other side. Still have to work it a bit in a minute. You get your bezels nice and tight. If you have them too loose, you got to stretch too much over the stone. And then we've got a little bit of here, which we'll just trim off, file it square, and join it up. So I'll just get this roughly right. I know it's a bit hard to do on camera. Just give that a quick mark in a sec. So that's where I've got to cut it. So then I'll just file that and we'll solder those two together. So what we've got is a bezel shape around the stone. We've got a join here. I'm just going to solder those together now with obviously some gold solder, and I'll show you the next bit. Okay, we need to solder this bezel together. A million different ways you can do this. We'll just get some solder paste, bit of flux I should say. Just put the flux where you want the solder to flow, Always make sure I get something in the joint as well. You can use solder paste, which I think's not a big fan of it, but you can do it that way, or I just cut up my own little solder tabs and melt them on. So just have enough flux that it'll flow where you want it to. Do like that. So we just hold it like that. I'll make my own solder tabs up. So get one of them out, get your favourite tab out, what size you need, that's probably plenty. Stick that on the join. Get your favourite gas torch. You just want a little flame, don't go too crazy. Add some oxygen to get a nice little naked flame, so a little cone on the top like that. And we'll heat up the entire ring, or the bezel I should say. Now the solder will jump around and carry on a bit. So if you just heat it up nice and evenly, get a little bit of heat up the top as well, even though that's not where we want it to solder. Slowly work on the joint, you'll see it'll clean itself. And once you get the right amount of heat, it's nice and even at the top, then you start concentrating on the actual solder joint itself. You see, it's simple as that, just flow through the joint, that's it. And then we pop that in the pickle. Okay, so whilst working on that bezel, we've slowly been bending this backing around. So it gets pretty hard as soon as you start bending it, so it'll have to go back in, anneal it with the gas, and then pickle it, and then keep bending it. So all we're doing is making that round to the shape exactly at the back, and then we'll solder our bezel onto the edge of this. So I'll soften this up again and keep bending it. So here's our bezel that we've just joined. You can see there's a solder joint on the inside and it flows through to the outside. All I've done is just got some very light sandpaper and just quickly run over the joint like so. So we know that that's a nice clean solid joint, and I'll just quickly sand the inside of that joint as well, keep it the same thickness as the bezel itself, and then we'll shape that perfectly over the little stone like so, and then we'll solder that onto the backing thing we're currently making. Okay, so I've just given that bezel a very light sand quickly. As you can see now, you can't see where the joint is, and it's the same thickness as the bezel material itself now. So we need to just tidy this up a little bit. It's not actually curved perfectly, as you can see. Well, I don't know if you can or not. So we need to round out this properly so it fits perfectly over the stone, which it doesn't at the moment. So once we get that right, then we'll make the backing for it. Okay, so we've got our bezel to set around there now, nice and even. So still there's a bit of work, got to sand the bottom of this yet, and then that will then weld onto the back, which we're currently making. So this is the backing plate for what the opal's going to sit on, and then we'll weld the bezel to the edge of this. And at the moment, as you can see, the back's way too big. So all we're doing is just slowly reducing the size of this, and once it's the same size as the opal, we'll weld the bezel onto it. Okay, so we just made this little backing plate, and then the bezel sits over the outside of that. You can actually make these multiple ways. You can put a solid plate on first and then cut a hole out of the back, but this way it sits in nice and flush. So anyway, that's a little bit like that, and then the stone will sit in there like that, and then we'll bezel that over. So obviously that's not finished yet, so the that's like the back of the stone there. I've got to clean all this and sand it obviously, and that bezel will go around the outside, and then this will get folded over the front of the stone. I've got to put a loop on there first and a bale, but I thought I'd keep a simple design this time, let the opal be the star. But anyway, I'll tidy that up a lot actually. Okay, we'll just try and solder the base of this in. Bit of a different way of doing it this time, coming from underneath. Put our little solder tabs in there with our flux. They tend to jump around a bit like this. So the flux has done its job cleaning now. You can see it's all just gone clear. So we'll just slowly, gently, evenly heat the whole thing. So it flows all the way around like that. A little bit more this side. There we go. Put that in the pickle. Okay, we just soldered that as you saw, and the thing I like about these is they're very, very, very strong when they're finished. The thing I hate about them is they're harder to make than just welding a solid plate on the back. Anyway, so as you can see inside, it's got a nice bezel of solid solder, gold solder all the way around. Makes that joint incredibly strong, and it also suits the curvature of the opal that you inlay into. Basically, the other thing is too, like at the back here, you can see where the solder's flowed all the way through, and you can actually grind off a little round corner on the back of that, so you know it's got a really solid joint. So the other way of doing it is having a solid plate of gold on the back, having the bezel sit on top of the plate and solder it, and then you cut out your hole, etc. But what actually happens if you've got a solder joint on the edge of your bezel, whereas this is on the inside, so that's just going to be a pure nice line across there, which just finishes them off. They make them a weightier opal, weightier setting, and pretty solid and chunky. That's sort of, yeah, that's why I do them this way sometimes. A lot more work, but anyway. So what we'll do later on is we'll weld a little jump ring onto there, and then we'll make a custom bale. But this needs a big clean up now. Okay, we're going to a very quick clean up. So you can see there's a joint around the back there. I've got to clean all that up yet. And so that's the inside. And then obviously the opal's going to sit inside the bezel. Like that. So you'll see it through the back. And we'll just put a jump ring in a bale soon. Okay, so at the back here I've decided that's going to be the top. Put a little pencil mark there so I know that the jump ring's going to go on here. So obviously on the other side too, I've worked out that's the way I'm going to set the opal, and I'll put a black dot on the top so we can line that up properly later. Now I'll put the jump ring on. Okay, just made a quick little jump ring out of some 0.8mm wire, and what I'll do is I like to spot weld these on with my micro welder, and then I'll solder them with gas. So it's basically that lead pencil line we put on there, we line that up there, and then what we do is tack it on like that. So that's just spot welded on there temporary as I drop it. You can twist them around a bit and line them up to exactly how you want them to be. So I want that twisted around a little bit. We can actually hang it and make sure it's going to sit perfectly how we want it. So I just get spare tungsten on here, so I can hang it like that and go, yep, that's pretty spot on. And then we can solder that with gas. Okay, now we'll just solder the jump ring on. Just crank my gas up again. A little light flame this time, you don't want much at all. And I've got some easy solder this time. Oh, bump the camera, sorry. So we've got a flux on there already. Got it held in a third hand. Just give it a gentle heat first. And that lets the flux do its thing. You'll see the flux will start changing colour as it works. If you heat it up too fast, everything happens too quick and it doesn't get a chance to give it a good clean. So you'll see the flux will actually start changing colour. Goes clear. And you know it's starting to work. So then you can heat up the joint a bit. Get a little bit of solder on there. Just like that. Might put a tiny bit extra on there. And there we go, solder's flowed. And we'll pop that in the pickle. Okay, so that's the bale soldered on. Needs a good clean up now. I've got to grind a bit of this excess solder back and then we'll clean the whole piece up, give it a really good polish, and we're going to make a bale as well. Okay, we've given it a bit of a clean up in its first stage of sanding. It should come up okay. Just grab the little oval there, so that's the way up it's going to go. You don't have to see at this stage, it'll sit in there like that and it'll have an open back. So anyway, we'll keep carrying on. Okay, so what I've done is I've ground down this bezel a little bit to suit the stone so it sits in there nicely, and we're just starting to make a bale as well. I'll bend that over and make a little bale sit in there like that. So keeping it a pretty simple design. I'll stamp my name in the back there later, and yeah, just need to start sanding it and go through the finer sands, and then we'll polish this up. Okay, just been through some sandpaper processes and that's ready for a polish now. There's a little bale we've made, so eventually I'll weld that on there. I'll just polish it now. Okay, so we polished this up on the polishing wheel. It's got a nice shine on that now. I'm going to put a stamp on that in a sec. And there's the bale all polished. I'll give them all a hand polish right at the end, but anyway, I'm just going to put a couple of stamps on here, which will be OQ for Opal Quest and 9K for 9 karat gold. Alright, so get our favourite stamps out. So got OQ, which is Opal Quest. Put on there. Yeah, this is going to be fun. I don't know how I can do this without hitting the camera. Oh, that didn't go well. Okay. Camera's got to move. Alright. Wow, I nearly messed that up. Trying to do this when the camera's in the road and it slipped off. Anyway, I can salvage this. Very difficult when you've hit a stamp and then trying to re-stamp something. That was my fault. I should have just left it. Okay. So the trick is getting it lined up exactly how you had it before, which is like that. Now I've actually got room to hit with a hammer. There we go. Oh, got away with that. Okay, okay. And we've got one for 9 karat. Make sure we get him the right way around, which is actually like that. So I'll spin the whole thing around. It's not much of a lip to rest everything on here, so makes it a bit tricky. Might some light on the subject will help. I keep saying this, but I really got to get some camera stuff set up because this is a bit backyardish with the camera. I know. Right, decent hit. But there's 9K. Not brilliant either. Wow. Gotta get this sorted out properly today. Double hitting stamps is never good. Like, it's just, you shouldn't do it. There we go. So that's worked out quite well. So there's a 9K. Which way are we going? OQ, 9K. Okay, so there we go. OQ and 9K. Now I'll weld the bale on and then we'll set the stone. Okay, we're going to try and weld this bale on now. So it's all had a bit of a polish. We'll do a hand polish on all this later when it's done. So I'll just pop that on here, like so, and then we'll weld it. So I just got to weld these 2 points together. May not be able to see much, but I'm using the micro welder to do this. I've already got it all set up. If we get it right, we should be able to zap that together, no worries at all. And there we go. Beautiful. So I don't know if you can see that, but that's done a beautiful round, nice little neat ball on the end. That'll be quite a very strong weld actually. So now I'll give that little welder polish up, and then we'll set the stone. Okay, so this is kind of what I see under the microscope when I'm welding and things. Oh, sticking the camera through the microscope lens makes it a bit hard, but there you go. So Opal Quest stamped on there, little bales made, and we'll now get this stone set. Okay, next step is get a bit of thermo lock, which goes in my vise. That's the butterfly we made earlier. Right, heat that up in the microwave till it's soft, and then we'll put it in our vise and we can set this stone. Okay, so we've got a hot thermo plastic here, thermo lock. I've got it stuck in the vise here, as you can see, just enough that I can squish it up a bit and it'll grip. As you crank it up, it'll squeeze through. And then I'll flatten the top off a little bit, mould it down like so, then put your setting in. I'll set it up there. What I'll do first is actually put a nice big groove in the front so the bale can hang over the front of that, because if you lock it in too much you'll have heaps of trouble getting it out if you lock the bale in. So this is to hold it for when we bezel set the stone. What I normally do is just get the edges and go around a bit. It's pretty soft at the moment. I've got it probably too hot. But what I'll do is just go all the way around. Try and keep it nice and even. It's got a huge bubble happening in the middle, which I don't want because we're going to set a stone in there. I don't know if you can see. No, you can't. So see that little bubble there? So what we're going to do is push that down, because the stone has to go inside that and sit down nice and flush. So again, like I said, I've got this way too hot, but anyway, it'll cool. Just gonna give ourselves a nice little bit of area to work on. Because we're going to bezel this over, you want to make sure you can get the tools into it. So I'll put a bit of a angle down on this, the rest of this, so I can actually get at it with the tool. So the centre's all hollowed out now. Yeah, I got a bit sidetracked, I got it a bit too hot, but anyway, it'll be alright. You always make sure that around where the bale nut is that you don't have it locked in. Wow, that's still too hot anyway, because you'll have heaps of trouble getting a bale out otherwise. It's just got to be enough to hold it while we're bezeling the edges over. That'll be fine. I've got that set up a bit, and I'll lock it up a bit more within the vise. And we can set our stone. Okay, so our thermalock's hardened up now, and you can see we've got a little divot in the center, so the stone will sit nice and flat on that rim there. We've got a little channel in here so the bale doesn't get stuck when we're trying to get it out later. We've got it locked in, and we've got just enough material to get the hammer around the side to bezel it over. What we do is just quickly lock it, which I've already done, but we'll just give that a bit of a tweak now that it's gone hard, so the vise locks onto here, and then that's pretty solid. So as you can see, pretty good stuff. And right, so time to set the stone. Okay, so now we get our little favourite stone out. We've already put the little black dot on the top so we know which way around it goes, and we decided that was going to be the top. So then it's just a matter of placing the stone in. You could put glue behind there if you wanted to. If you've got a really loose setting, that'll stop them vibrating around. I don't like doing that though, because you can get dirt and everything between the glue layer. I prefer to put them in just basically natural, solid. So anyway, so pop that in there, hopefully it fits alright. Just get that corner there in first, and that should push down nicely right down into the setting like so. So we'll push him all the way down, make sure it's seated all the way. The cool part about these vices is you can spin them around and have a really good look at what's happening. Make sure it's set properly. It's quite a skinny stone, being a shell, but shells are pretty special and rare, I reckon, so I think that makes them even more valuable. But make sure it's down all the way, bottomed out, and then we can bezel over there. And that little line, which we can simply get out with a tiny bit of metho, like that. There we go, that's that black dot all gone. So as you can see, the bezel's all sitting nice at the right height. I've cut that down to suit the stone. I don't know if that's coming up on camera or not. Anyway, and then we'll start folding this over. Okay, so two ways we can do it. This is a traditional, just a push tool basically, to push the bezels over. I like to start using this. Sometimes you just get it right on the edge down here. Let's see if that's focused. Yep. So, and then we just slowly start moving the gold ever so gently over the stone. I like to do this first, so I get a little bit of control by hand, and just stretch the bottom of the bezel more so it locks the stone in where I want it to. You're going to be super careful you don't sort of go too crazy. If you push too hard in the wrong spot, you can crack a stone. Like I said, this is quite a thin stone, but definitely enough there to bezel over anyway. So just work our way around the stone nice and slow. You don't want to do too much at a time, because you can actually kink the gold. And I've actually got a pneumatic hammer to do this. But what I find sometimes, when you've got the bezel set pretty close to spot on, what I'm lucky with this one, with the hammer, which is this here, I can show you, but I probably won't use it this time actually. Oh, sorry, I've got stuff everywhere here in the road. So this is a pneumatic hammer, which basically what that does is like a little tiny jackhammer. You put that on the edge of the bezel, and you can go around and hammer that down. It does quite a good job, but it does tend to put a few more dings and markings in it, as opposed to doing it by hand. But so you can do it both ways. What I'll do in the meantime, I'll stick with this for a sec so I can get a bit more control on how much pressure to put on it. Just rock it around a little bit. I'll probably finish it off with a hammer. Sorry about my camera skills. I'm sort of struggling a bit here because I've got these magnifying things on to see what I'm doing, but the camera's in the road, and yeah, it's a bit difficult to see. Plus my eyes aren't getting any better. if you are after a piece of jewellery, especially custom made, we can show you some photos of certain opal colours and styles that you like, and then we can get them set for you. That's mainly what we do actually. A lot of our stuff is just people saying, oh look, can you make me a pendant in this colour or whatever, and we'll just show them the opal we've got at the time and sit down and design something and to your budget and go from there. So as you can see, that's coming up okay. Just gonna make sure there's no little sharp edges on it as well. I might have to shift this camera in a minute. So anyway, the hammer part, as it taps around, you can put little tiny dents all the way around, and then you polish them out later. That's no big drama. But if you can use this as a nice flat piece and roll it around as you go, it doesn't tend to scratch as much. Then what we do after that is, this is a burnishing tool. So this is actually what we can use after we've bezeled it. You actually roll around the stone like so, and just finish off bending that gold over the stone. Puts a nice little edge on it. So alright, I'm going to move this camera, tidy this up a bit, and then I'll show you the finished result. Okay, so there we go. I didn't do much else to that. I just bezeled over a bit neater, then when I could actually get closer and see what I was doing. That's pretty much it. So camera struggles to pick up the colours this thing's got. Trying to get rid of that light. Maybe that'll help. Not really. Maybe. So frustrating photographing opal. Put in the shadow a bit. That might help. There you go. So that's got some pretty cool colour. That is full crystal, beautiful, every colour of the rainbow. 9 karat gold. And how many carats was that in the end? I can't even remember. 2 point something. 2.3. There you go. So 2.3 carats. Coober Pedy. That'll be on our website shortly at www.opalquest.com. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed watching that. And I should show you how to get this out, shouldn't I? Alright, what are we doing? Get this out of here first. So just undo the vise a bit. Oh, bash everything around. Get out of the road. Right, so this bale hopefully is loose. And it is. And then we can try and lever this out. Actually, you know, basically what we do is we either get a piece of wood or a piece of plastic and dig underneath and then just pop that out. I'm just going to take my time and do this because I don't want to scratch it. So bear with me. I'll show you the end result. Alright, so what I've done is I've loosened the bale off here. Oh, and that was stuck in there pretty well. What I've done through here, I've actually stuck little pliers in through underneath the actual thermo lock and then give it a little bit of a lever, which is just enough to break it out like that. And there we have it. So it's all set nice and hard up against the back of that. I'll give that a final polish, hand polish, and that's pretty much it. Okay, so there's the finished product. I'll just give me a bit of a final polish. Fingerprints and that off it. So there you go. So you can see that little backing plate when the sun hits it, or light hits it. And it's a pretty flashy little gem all the way around. The camera doesn't really pick it up as usual, but that is pretty flash. And big open back so you can tell that it's a solid opal. So anyway, thanks for watching. Yeah, please like and subscribe if you could. Helps our channel out. And yeah, I'll try and do some more videos when I get a chance. Okay, thank you. See you later.